I don't know where the county's getting $300 to give each of their employees for Christmas. I don't know. They're in worse financial shape than we are.
But we're not. We're not in a bad financial situation.
We're getting awfully close for what we need to do, but budget time. Hey, Garrett, it's 319. Yeah. Listen, I'll support it as long as the city manager said he's got the money. We've got time to work it. When's our
Trying to get Leslie's
their lease
attention.
thing? When's our lease thing? For lunch. Wasn't any of this council meeting?
Leslie, you won the election.
Yeah.
Good evening. Welcome to the November 27th meeting of the Aiken City Council. This time we're going to have our invocation and pledge. I'd like to ask Mr. John McMichaels if he'd come forward and lead us our invocation, followed by the pledge from Chief Rankin. Good evening, John.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a very special night, and I appreciate and honored to be here. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for the men and women in this room that seek to serve you. We thank those that are completing their term of service, and we certainly welcome those that are about to be sworn into their new roles and new service for our community. Father, we pray that you give them wisdom, that you give them discernment, but most of all, that you give them a vision and a hope for this community as we move forward. Father, we just pray for our citizens, all those that support us in the city government, and the public safety that put their life on the line every day to make our lives better and to make us feel protected, keep us safe. Father, we pray for this council that you be with them this coming year. Give them vision, give them discernment and wisdom too as they perform their duties. And Father, again, we're quick to give you all the praise and glory for this wonderful community, for this wonderful country we live in. We ask it all in his most precious name. Amen.
Good evening, Chief.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The guidelines for our Aiken City Council meetings. Meetings are public forums in which many opinions are expressed and the business of the city must be conducted. As such, disciplined, honorable, and professional decorum is paramount. Courteous and respectful communication is expected. During public hearing, all questions and statements from the public shall be directed to the chair. If you wish to speak, raise your hand and I will certainly recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. In order to allow an opportunity for everyone who wishes to address council, speakers should limit their comments to the subject being discussed. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to address an issue and may only address an issue once unless questions from council are posed to the speaker. And with that, we'll move to additions and deletions to the agenda. And I will recognize for the last time, Mayor Pro Tem Reggie Evans.
Does any council members have any additions or changes to the agenda? Mr. Mayor, I'll move to accept the agenda as posted.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Before our meeting, the minutes were distributed to council members for their review. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So move, Mr. Mayor, that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Moving down to that portion of our agenda presentations. Number 1 is report by our election commission on November 7th, 2017 election. And I think we have our chairman, Mr. Johnson, here tonight to make a presentation to us.
Come here, up there. To Mayor Osborne and to members of City Council, City Manager, Mr. Clem, City Attorney, Mr. Smith, to the citizens of the City of Aiken, the Commission desires to make it report on the November the 7th, 2017 City Council election. I would also like to recognize Vice Chair of the municipal election, if he's present, that's Mr. Keith Wood. Keith apparently is not here. City of Aiken Memorandum. Date, November 27, 2017, to City Council from Commission. General election. The City of Aiken conducted a general election on Tuesday, November 7, 2017, to fill 4 expired seats on City Council. The seats are Council District 2, Council District 4, Council District 5, and Council District 6. The election was conducted under the 6-1 single-member district plan. Notification was made public through newspaper advertising as prescribed by law. Filing was open at 12 noon Monday, July 3rd, 2017. Filing closed 12 noon Monday, July 10th, 2017. The following candidates filed. For Council District 2, Lester B. Price, Democrat. For Council District 4, Edward Gerardot, Republican. For Council District 5, Andrea N. Gregory, Republican. For Council District 5, Andrew J. Halen, Republican. For Council District 5, Jeffrey S. Jordan, Republican. For Council District 6, Joanne Tillman Hooper, Democrat. For Council District 6, Philip R. Mary Jr., Republican. For Council District 6, Edward K. Wolf, Republican. Since only one candidate filed for District 2 and only one candidate filed for District 4, and no one filed as a write-in candidate within 14 calendar days after the filing closed, based on the South Carolina Law 7-13-190, those candidates are declared winners without an election being held. Since more than one candidate filed for Council District 5 and for Council District 6, a Republican primary was conducted on August 8th, 2017. District 5 candidate, Andrea N. Gregory, Andrew Halen, Jeffrey S. Jordan. District 6, Philip R. Mary and Edward K. Wolf. The winner in the primary for District 5 was Andrea N. Gregory, and the winner in District 6 was Edward K. Wolf. Their names were placed on the general election ballot. District 5, Andrea N. Gregory, Republican. District 6, Edward K. Wolf, Republican. Joanne Tillman Hooper, Democrat. With 797 ballots cast, the results are as follows. District 5, Andrea N. Gregory, 146 votes. Write-in, 11 votes. District 6, Edward K. Wolf, 434 votes. Joanne Tillman Hooper, 196 votes. Write-in, 1 vote. The Municipal Election Commission does hereby certify the election of Leslie B. Price, Democrat, District 2. Council District 4, Edward F. Jerrigan, Republican. Council District 5, Andrea N. Gregory, Republican. Council District 6, Edward K. Wolf, Republican. Their term of office shall be for a period of 4 years. The tabulation of votes as listed. Respectfully submitted, Municipal Election Commission, Richard Johnson Jr., Keith R. Woods, Rebecca Vinya. Mr. Mayor and Council, that concludes our report, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. Of course, that report will be accepted for information and no vote is required. At this time, before we swear in our new members, we want to have an opportunity to say thank you to some members who have served us with a lot of passion, a lot of commitment, and have served the citizens of Aiken well, and the city is a better place because of it. So Mr. Homoki is not with us tonight, but we have Councilman Ebner, Councilman Mary. So gentlemen, if you would, meet me down at the front podium. I know several members of the council have already expressed that they wanted to have an opportunity to speak to you as well, but we have just a little token of our appreciation. It says, first, Mr. Phillip, presented to Philip R. Mary Jr. for your leadership and dedicated service to the city of Aiken and the citizens as a council member, March 25th, 2013 through November 27th, 2017. Presented this 27th day of November 2017, and Philip, it has a seal of our city on it, and it comes with the appreciation of our citizens. Thank you for all your commitment and time that you've given to us. Thank you. Then to Reginald D. Ebner, he still won't tell me what the D stands for. For your leadership and dedicated service to the city of Aiken and its citizens as a council member, November 23, 2009 to November 27, 2017. Presented this 27th day of November 2017. I've asked Reggie and I usually meet before council meetings at a local restaurant about 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday beforehand. So I'm trying to twist his arm to keep meeting with him because of the expertise he brings, but I've been notified I may have to buy the breakfast. Reggie, thanks for all you've done. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And this may be an opportunity if anyone from council wants to. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a few comments about the three that is leaving us. Each one of them brought invaluable talent, not only to our city, but to our council. I look at Reggie, and he brought some invaluable engineering skills and financial skills, along with, to my left here, my partner, Philip Mary, who brought skills in the development area and could always enlighten us in many areas. And my absent partner to my right here had a variety of skills based on his military background that he brought to us. So While their skills will be missed, there are always new information and new talent coming in, but we will sincerely miss you and miss the things that you brought. But I don't see this as a total departure, because I think that the three of you will somehow stay engaged and be involved in what's going on in our city. So thank you personally
shut
for your
us up.
service.
Thank you.
I would support those comments. I think the mayor talked about passion and commitment to the community, and I know many of you realize it's just not a job that we do every second and fourth Monday. I can't tell you how many times Philip and Reggie and I met at Atlantic Bread Factory and then to Panera, just to talk about city issues. Philip is just an absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to municipal planning, and he's been at it for years. And I think we try to take full advantage of it. Reggie knows more about construction management than the rest of us combined, and he's been a source of invaluable knowledge. I will deeply miss them both. I don't mean to slight Steve. We talked about Steve last meeting, but I will miss them both. And as Leslie said, I hope they stay engaged, but I have their telephone numbers, so I'll be planning on calling you both. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And without being repetitious, I'd like to say that I'm going to miss you as well. Reggie, you always kept me updated on capital sales money. It's like, we can't do that. That'll be taking your money away. And I really, really appreciate that. And Philip, you and I have a good relationship,
Oh, yeah.
and we'll always have that. But I think the other night Steve said he brought style to council. I think that's because of his socks and ties, you know. But I'm going to miss all three of you. I've learned so much from all of you. And just being around you and your families at different events, I really enjoyed them. Gail, we're still going to have to see each other. I know one place we'll see each other. And Philip, is your lovely wife here?
No, she's not here.
Okay, and I know Steve is out of town.
Picking my daughter up.
But when you get on council, you become part of a family. And tonight, I wouldn't say we're losing part of our families. They're just moving on to another place, and we're inviting our new council members in. But please know that I deeply appreciate everything that you've done for our city, but your kindness and your friendship as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diggs. And with that, we're going to welcome in our new family members right now. I think it's time for our swearing in. I know there's a lot of family and friends here who are excited about this. We're going to do all four council members at the same time, and Ms. Price, that includes you. I think we forgot to mention you in the excitement of that. And on behalf of the city of Aiken, let me apologize. We're going to ask Councilwoman Price, Councilman-elect Ed Giardo, Councilwoman-elect Andrea Gregory, and Councilman-elect Ed Waltz to come up at this time, and Ms. Sarah Rideout, our city clerk, will administer the
When do we go?
You'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I'm duly qualified,
that I'm duly qualified,
according to the Constitution of this state,
according to the Constitution of this state,
to exercise the duties of the office
to exercise the duties of the office
to which I have been elected,
to which I have been elected,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
discharge the duties thereof,
discharge the duties thereof,
and preserve, protect, and defend
and preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of this state and of the United States.
the Constitution of this state and the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As a council member of the municipality
City of Aiken.
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
I will equally, fairly, and impartially,
to the best of my ability and skill,
to the best of my ability and skill,
exercise the trust reposed in me.
exercise the trust reposed in me,
And I will use my best endeavors
and I will use my best endeavors
to preserve the peace
to preserve the peace
and carry into effect,
and carry into effect,
according to law,
according to law,
the purposes for which I've been elected.
the purposes for which I've been elected.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now, please welcome your new city council members. We're going to take a 5-minute recess at this time, and then get you up here working. picture, Holly.
I'm not saying anything.
Leslie's feeling a little left out. If you could just take it anyway. All right, we're going to call our meeting back to order. I had a feeling it might clear out a little bit if we did that. I didn't know.
I brought my, you got the agenda. I can try this here.
Do our new council members have an agenda with them, or? Okay, very good. We're going into presentations, appointment of Mayor Pro Temper at this time.
Mayor, I nominate Councilmember Gail Diggs to serve as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second that nomination, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of Councilwoman Gail Diggs to serve as Mayor Pro Tem for a 2-year term? Raise your hand. And then you guys did great, and that's unanimous. Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem Diggs.
Thank you. Thank you.
That one was easy.
Yeah. You know how that's done?
Moving down under presentations, item number 4. This is a presentation regarding water and sewer revenue bond requests for proposals. And I'll recognize our city manager, John Clem.
Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council, we have with us this evening Mr. David Cheatwood, who is from First Try on our financial advisors, who has some very good news relative to our water and sewer bond issue. Mr. Cheatwood?
Good evening.
Thank you. Mayor, council, good evening. Good to see you all. Thanks for having me here tonight, and welcome to the new members on council. Look forward to working with you as I have the other members on helping with the city's capital planning going forward. As Mr. Clem said, I am here to talk about your water and sewer revenue bond. I was just here about a month ago to talk about the sewer system revenue bond. So back this time around for a different bond issue, but similar process that we went through. We sent out a request for proposals to a list of banks that are active in lending to municipalities. And so we had the full description of what this revenue bond was for, the use of proceeds, the term, and some of the other details that they require for that. And so what you have before you, I think, on your desk and what's in front of you on the screen here is the bid summary, the summary of the proposals that we got in. So this is going to be the same format for those of you that were here a month ago that saw this on the stormwater bond. We got in 6 proposals here for the water and sewer system revenue bond. Those 6 proposals were from U.S. Bank, BB&T, TD Bank, Capital One, Pinnacle Bank, and Key Bank. And so 4 of those names also bid on your stormwater bond last month, and so they had some commonality between them, and the rates were very similar. We also got in 2 new proposals. TD Bank was a new entrant on this one, and actually our low bid on terms of rate, U.S. Bank, was a new bid on this one. They did not bid on the stormwater one. And so what you can see there, as I mentioned a month or so ago, when we look at this, we're looking first and foremost at the interest rate they're proposing, and then also looking at any of the prepayment provisions, and any other terms or conditions that they have included in their proposal to make sure that we are, the best case scenario is the lowest interest rate, also provides prepayment flexibility, and also provides acceptable terms and conditions to the city. And so, as I mentioned, U.S. Bank was our low proposer in terms of interest rate. They bid 2.509%. Somewhat coincidentally, your winning bid on your stormwater bond was 2.51%, so almost the exact same rate. Different security structure. These are not related, but we did them around the same time. And so I think the fact that it was the same term, we're looking at a 15-year term on this, a similar type credit where you have a revenue pledge behind it, that resulted in a similar rate. BB&T, who bought your stormwater bond, which we closed on a couple weeks ago, they were the cover bid, the second place bid at a 2.58%. And so they were a couple basis points higher on this one than they were a month or so ago. Part of that due to just the general market movement and rates slightly higher now than it was a month ago. But very attractive interest rates from U.S. Bank, BB&T, and then the other ones fell in line behind that. The highest interest rate was Key Bank at 3.05%, and so a spread of about 50 to 55 basis points between high and low. So very attractive interest rate. A 251 over 15 years, as I mentioned a month ago, is a great interest rate, incredibly low. That's going to result on a $4.5 million revenue bond, which is what the city would issue. You would pay about $5.4 million, which is the total debt service, $5.4 million over time, so around $900,000 in interest cost over a 15-year period. So that $4.5 million, as you will see in your second reading of your bond ordinance tonight, that is going to go towards a variety of improvements to your water and sewer system, namely some water line replacements, water main replacements in downtown and other areas, some new valves and hydrants, and then also improvements to Banks Lift Station. So those are the general use of proceeds there on this $4.5 million revenue bond. On U.S. Bank, they're also proposing some prepayment flexibility they have. After 13 months, the city can prepay it if it chooses to, if it wants to prepay it early or refinance it at some point in the future. They have a provision there where it's going to be the lower of a 3% prepayment penalty. That's 3% on the par amount of the bonds outstanding at that time, or what's called a make-whole provision. It's a formula that's involved there. But you all do have prepayment flexibility going forward. The only thing I'd note on the additional terms or conditions, it was a very clean proposal there. However, still subject to their formal credit approval. U.S. Bank does a little bit differently, where they do get preliminary approval when they submit a proposal. If they're the winning bid, they will then go get final approval. That is supposed to come in later this week. We don't anticipate any issues on that in getting the formal credit approval. But once that comes in, your bond counsel, Gary Pope at Pope Flynn, prepare closing documents, and we're prepared to close this revenue bond issue next Thursday, December the 7th. And so again, I was really pleased with the bids that came in, both the number, the 6 bids, and then the interest rate itself speaks well to the city, your credit quality, and what you're doing with these proceeds here. Any questions on our RFP process or the proposals that came in?
I think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Okay, moving down the agenda to old business. Number 1 is approval of appointments and discussion of appointees to various city boards, commissions, and committees. Comments from staff.
Mr. Mayor, the council has 17 pending appointments to fill vacancies on different city boards, commissions, and committees. 3 appointments are presented for council's consideration and vote at the meeting tonight. Council Member Price has recommended the reappointment of Lawrence Ogletree to the Board of Zoning Appeals. If reappointed, Mr. Ogletree's term would expire December 1st, 2019. Councilmember Price has also recommended the reappointment of Charles Matthews to the Planning Commission. And if reappointed, his term would expire December 1st, 2019. Also recommended for reappointment is John Wallace to the Recreation Commission. With a reappointment, his term would expire September 1st, 2019. For council consideration is the reappointment of Lawrence Ogletree to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Charles Matthews to the Planning Commission, and John Wallace to the Recreation Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. Okay. Is there a motion to accept?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor of the names presented tonight? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And I know our new members will have some names that they'll be presenting as they move through the process as well. You probably know this, but what we'll typically do at this time, we'll open it up for names to be considered at our next public meeting. You can also call Sarah with those names also on that. So from our council, though, are there any names to be moved forward for consideration at our next meeting at this time?
Not yet.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Moving down old business to number 2, this is second reading and public hearing of an ordinance for the issuance of water and sewer system revenue bonds by title, a series ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of water and sewer system revenue bonds to be designated Series 2017B in the principal amount of not exceeding $4,500,000 of the City of Aiken, South Carolina, and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Okay, Councilwoman Diggs, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Duar. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, as part of our downtown infrastructure improvements project, we have, for council consideration, a series of revenue bonds to be paid from budgeted water and sewer fees collected from our customers. These bonds are for an amount not to exceed $4.5 million and will allow us to pay for the costs of engineering, design, and construction of certain improvements to the water and sewer infrastructure, including water main replacements in the downtown area, valve and hydrant improvements, improvements to the Banks Mill lift station, and the cost of issuance. This is the first water and sewer series bond ordinance that follows the master bond ordinance that the council approved in June of 2017. Our attorney, Gary Pope, will be present at the council meeting, is present at the council meeting to answer any questions that you have about this bond issuance. We also have staff from Public Works if there are any questions about the specific work to be completed. City Council approved this ordinance on first reading at the November 13th meeting. For City Council consideration, a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of water and sewer system revenue bonds to be designated Series 2017 and the principal amount not exceeding $4.5 million. And as I mentioned, Mr. Mayor, Attorney Gary Pope is present to answer any questions you may have.
Sure, thank you. And I think I may ask either Michelle or John to come up and talk a little bit about the scope, especially for our new council members. This is an old topic for those of us who've been here, but it would be nice if someone could kind of give the scope of what this is going to do. So I don't know. John Paul, our city engineer. You didn't think I was going to let you go at night without coming up, did you?
No, sir.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. For the water and sewer bond, right now I'm planning 2 water line replacements. One is at Bonneview Estates, and the other one is at Hidden Haven. In addition to that, we're going to do a lot of downtown work with the Phase 1B, and then beyond that, I guess we'll go into Phase 2 that would kind of network out away from that initial hub in downtown. Also, this would be for the Banks Mill lift station, as was said earlier. That lift station has very marginal capacity left, so if there's any development on that end of town, it'll be undersized. So, if y'all have any questions, please let me know.
When is is there anticipated date for completion?
Anticipated date for completion, we haven't actually handled that yet. We're still in the process of developing the plans. Right now, we've got survey crews out there looking at the Banks Mill and Bonneview and, excuse me, Hidden Haven. Now, downtown, we're going to start work very soon. We're about to finish up the plans for the Phase 1B, and we're just started Phase 1A. So,
What have you discovered so far with the work you've done?
we discovered quite a bit. There's a pretty large vault over here on Lawrence, big stormwater vault. It's about, I want to say about 13 feet deep, 8 foot wide. That was just a complete out of the blue find. That's going to be fairly expensive to rehabilitate if we need to. Right now, the engineers are saying that the condition's okay.
Is that the one at the end of the alley?
No, sir. Well, yeah, it actually is. If you go out on the Lawrence from the end of the alley, it's right there in the middle of the median there.
We've done that's been there for years.
Oh yeah. So the brickwork in there says 1880.
Yep.
So it's pretty interesting find.
Years.
I'm sure we'll find other
Before
things
me.
similar to that throughout, but.
Is it still looking like May? That was the date that you last gave us for the downtown series of projects?
I need to go back and reevaluate the time schedule. We've had a couple setbacks, but it's not pushing far beyond that. So
I'll be very interested in seeing how you translate what you're finding with what you're going to project for the rest of the city.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had a lot of lessons learned thus far, and we're continuing to learn lessons every day. But the fact of the matter is we are pushing forward. It's loosely adhering to schedule, and I'm pretty pleased with the work that everybody's getting done.
Appreciate what you're doing. We are moving in the right direction. Thank you for your
Councilman.
work.
I have one question. Will this amount of money cover this whole project?
Oh, absolutely. We will, as we get the final engineered plans completed, we'll have a better, I guess, an engineered cost estimate. But right now, our preliminary estimates, these projects do fall within the municipal bonds.
It's a preliminary estimate.
I don't know right off my hand for each one, but, you know, like the Banks Mill lift station, I think it was $1.3 million. The Phase 1A it came in at like $320,000. So it's, you know, you have to kind of aggregate all that together to come up with the total cost, and I just don't have that in front of me right now.
Maybe we could get a list in the next packet?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In fact, if we
Absolutely.
could direct staff maybe to get those numbers to council for us.
Yes.
I have
Yeah,
a question. And of course, you mentioned the engineering having to come up with the estimates and so forth and so on. But my question is, when you find these particular structures,
Yes, ma'am.
what is the ultimate goal? You mentioned rehabilitating them, but is that the ultimate goal, or is this, would it also be a demolition or removal of?
In some cases, you
Structures.
would remove structures. In other cases, you would not. Like if it was if you have a working water line, but you need to have additional capacity, you'd likely just put another water line next to it, and then you'd have two working water lines. If it was a water line that had water quality issues or something, yeah, you could abandon it in place. You don't necessarily have to go through the expense of pulling that line out.
Right.
You can abandon it there. So.
Okay.
Most of the time, you would not pull the lines out because it's just additional disposal and you know, extra work.
Would an 1880 structure, you mentioned rehabbing something like that, so I
Well, the rehab of that would be, we've been talking about this at some length in previous meetings. Trenchless technology, we utilize that to the maximum extent practical. You're not going to dig up a structure that size. You're going to pretty much go inside of it, and if it needs structural, you know, repairs, build another structure within the existing structure.
And those are the numbers that you're referring to, Mr. Mayor? Pulling?
Yeah, what they'll do is actually give us a breakdown of each one of the projects. So it'll make sure that it'll come under, I mean, it does obviously what the bond rate does.
Finding
I
stuff.
think Kim may
just-
have it. You can.
I was just going to provide for the information as far as what we listed as the bond projects. So for the downtown water main and other replacements is $1,350,000. The valve and hydrant improvements is $1,500,000. And the Banks Mill lift station capacity, $1,200,000, plus cost of issuance and contingency. Okay.
If you build
Those are
in
the three projects that we listed.
10 or
amounts.
10 or 20% contingency in that.
Usually we put them in 10%.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Depends on the size of the project.
Sure. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those on second reading. Public hearing of the ordinance of the issuance of the water and sewer system revenue bonds. Please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to number 3 under old business. This is the second reading and public hearing of an ordinance accepting the FY 2016-17 audit. By title, an ordinance accepting the fiscal year 2016-17 audited financial statements and authorizing variances to the fiscal year 2016-17 budget ordinance. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve this on second reading. And we just saw a great example of our finance director at work, how she managed to pull those figures out so quickly. And we've got a great review. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
And a second. Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, our auditor, Malden & Jenkins, Certified Public Accountants, has prepared the fiscal year 2016-17 financial audit required by state law and city code. Mr. Miller Edwards reviewed the audit with the council at the last meeting at the work session on November 13th. He reported that the city received an unqualified opinion with no material weaknesses and no instances of noncompliance material to the financial statements. City Council approved this ordinance on first reading at the November 13th meeting for City Council consideration as second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to accept the fiscal year 2016-17 audited financial statements. And as you know, our finance director is here if you have any questions about the audit.
Thank you, Mr. Clune. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor on second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to old business number 4. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to grant a franchise to the Aiken Electric Cooperative Incorporated for use of right-of-way in the city of Aiken for providing electrical service to citizens of Aiken. By title, an ordinance granting a franchise to the Aiken Electric Cooperative, Inc. for the use of a portion of the public right-of-way in the city of Aiken for the purpose of providing electrical utility services to the citizens of the city of Aiken. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman DeWar. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Councilwoman Diggs, comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, as you know, the City of Aiken and Aiken Electric Co-op would like to renew the franchise agreement, which was last updated in 1999. After meeting on this subject on multiple occasions this past year, we're ready to move forward with this agreement. This agreement will run concurrently with the agreement that Council will also consider tonight with South Carolina Electric and Gas Company. The City and the Aiken Electric Co-op has spent many hours working on this agreement and are satisfied that it meets the needs of our citizens for the next 30 years. City Council approved this ordinance on first reading at the November 13th meeting. For Council consideration is second reading and public hearing of an ordinance granting a franchise to Aiken Electric Co-op for the use of a portion of the rights-of-way in the city of Aiken for the purpose of providing electrical services to the citizens of the city of Aiken. Mr. Mayor, you'll recall at the last meeting, I summarized the major changes with the franchise agreements with both companies that we presently have. The first is that we, for the first time ever, were able to work with both of our utilities on territories so that the occasional conflict that has arisen in the past will no longer occur. Having two utilities that are competitive, that compete against each other, work out the details is a first in the state of South Carolina, and our understanding is because of the success that both companies had here in working with the city of Aiken, that they are working on 2 or 3 other regions as a model for the future relationship between competing utilities. Because of that, there is no longer a need to mediate disputes, because there won't be any disputes. And the third major change was the length of the agreement. We are receiving the maximum amount allowable under South Carolina law, but the funds for the franchise fees are segregated for specific purposes, and one of those purposes are transportation projects, and a second is public safety. Now, as you know, we're building a new facility in public safety, and if we want to utilize these funds for the purposes of borrowing in the future, we have to have an agreement that lives through the life of the borrowing. And so it was actually the city's request that we go further out than had been the case. We have representatives from the utilities here to answer any questions that you may have to them. This has been fully reviewed by our legal staff and approved by them before it came to you at the last meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
I was not aware that it was our request to extend this to 30 years. I thought it was the recommendation by the utilities.
No, it was not. It was our request because when we decided to utilize a portion of the franchise fees for items that might be used for borrowing in the future, either new roads in the transportation program that you created or the building in question, we wanted to make sure there was a sufficient amount of time for the franchise agreement. And so the request actually came from the city, as was reported at the last meeting.
I missed that one, and I'm sorry, I did not understand that. Personally, Mr. Mayor, I don't, unless it's my marriage, I don't like to extend anything that long. But I supported it on first reading, but I have a great deal of trepidations for a 30-year agreement. A lot can happen in 30 years. But anyway, I will support it, but I am not comfortable with it.
Do we have an option to go back and renegotiate at any point in this contract, or are we totally locked in for 30 years?
Well, I would either turn to our attorney or to the utilities to respond to that.
The franchise agreement, if you'll give me just a second, it does have some language that allows the termination of the franchise agreement sooner than the 30 years.
Specifically, if the amount we could get would go up, could we terminate and go for that?
State on average, an adequate term is about 20 years.
Right.
And the reason that we recommended a longer term is especially in the area of transportation. We have been aggressively pursuing options to Whiskey Road that might involve new roads. When the city might be ready to do that and over what period of time is uncertain at this time, because we're negotiating with landowners. We don't know how long that period is going to be. And so since we're already receiving the maximum allowable under state law, we thought that in this specific instance, because my inclination is to support Councilmember Price and go with a shorter term, but knowing that or believing that we've got construction projects coming at us, we thought that the longer term would make sense.
What's the main repercussion that I guess you're concerned about if we extend it from like a 20-year term to a 30-year term?
That in 5 or 10 years, we over the last several years have kind of morphed from a city that was just trying to maintain but not create new things, to a council that wanted to take on new projects. We're building a new public safety building. We're looking at new roads. And it's because of the belief that we are at a position in the city where we want to become aggressive and get some projects done, that it was believed to be in our best interest in this instance to go with a longer term.
In case they change their mind or whatever the case may be after 20 years, right?
I apologize, that language is not in the agreement. It's a 30-year term. And it does not have a provision for early termination if.
Okay, are we locked in this, or can we amend it to put some language in it?
You can always amend an agreement by agreement of both parties.
I mean, before we enter into it, can we change it?
You have time to make that change if you like. If council would like to continue this for discussion and come back at the next meeting, you certainly have the right to do that. The current franchise agreement extends for another couple of years. So you don't have to you do not have to approve the new franchise agreement today.
So we could come up with some new language and speak to the utilities about it.
That's correct.
We have representatives from both the co-op and SC&G with us tonight. Scott and Kiata, would y'all mind stepping up? I saw that. We're having a pretty good one here. How would it affect both Aiken Co-op and SC&G if we continued this to get some of these questions answered?
Well, it appears that we have an agreement and we would basically have to start from scratch, right? If we have to change the term back to 20 years versus the 30 years.
If I could just add, you remember meeting with Gary Stutesbury and Keller Kassam, and part of that was an agreement that we presented to the City Council back several months ago, and that set the framework for the subsequent franchise agreements. And that agreement called for 30-year term and that it had to be done by December 1st. So if you all don't pass the I mean, obviously it's up to y'all what y'all decide to do. But if you don't pass the franchise agreements tonight, we would have to start again with that electric service rights agreement and go through the whole process again. Because by the terms of that agreement that the city entered into with us, if the franchise agreement is not adopted by December 1st, then that electric service rights agreement is void. That was something that the city agreed to. And the 30-year term has been on the table from the start. And we talked about that some at the last meeting. The city did prefer a longer term because of the financial considerations of perhaps bonding that revenue stream. And we're talking about a substantial amount of money when you look at the two franchise fees together. Now, I don't know exactly what it is. We're talking about several $1 million a year to the city.
The council clearly has the right and the authority to send this back to the drawing board. And if that's your wish, so be it. The only concern that I would have is that the language not allow the utilities to back out. Because if we're going to take on a major project like the public safety building or a new road, it's probably going to be with a 15 or 20-year note. So that means that we have to do everything within 5 or 10 years, or we can't use that revenue source. The last 20 years, we won't be able to use the revenue source if the borrowing is longer than the franchise agreement. And so...
So am I understanding the comment from Aiken Co-op and SCE&G that the city can expect $2 million or more from the two of you combined?
It's significantly higher than that.
It's higher than $2 million?
Yes. When you add the two numbers, just our number is far north of that. Just our number.
So we can expect more than $2 million from SCE&G?
Assuming our revenue doesn't change.
Assuming your revenue, but we don't know about what you're faced with now with...
I mean, obviously, you know,
People are
there's a
still gonna be
lot
using
going
power
on right now with all of that. But our revenue, historically, based on the revenue that we've had the last few years, is substantially higher than that number.
In consultation with our finance folks, some of whom are here tonight, their recommendation to us was, we're getting the maximum allowed by law. We know that we have construction projects. Their advice to us was lock in as long as you can, which is counterintuitive. I am usually one that says the shorter the better. But in this instance, knowing that we're going to need this money for projects, and knowing that this agreement is giving us the maximum revenue allowed by law, our financial advisors are saying, lock it in for as long as you can.
I don't know if this gives you any level of comfort at all, but, you know, we did start with Aiken as far as, you know, the electric service rights agreement. We met with Aiken first, but we have been meeting with other communities jointly, and we're meeting with more tomorrow. And the city of North Augusta has already approved this with 30 years. And even the little town of Jackson has gone through the process with us, 30 years. We've not actually had any resistance to the
Well, that's because Aiken has agreed to it first, or assumed to agree to it first. Gary, a question, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
Our attorney, what is the reluctancy for us to add a clause that says that if the majority of council, no matter who's sitting here, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, agree to it by the majority, wanting to meet and renegotiate this franchise agreement? We'll go with 30 years, but can we change the language to that? Can we add a clause into that?
There is, and I apologize, Mr. Walsh, but when you asked the question about being able to change the term, you do have a provision already built into both franchise agreements in the event the state legislature allows the city to charge more than 5% franchise fee. Both of them have agreed that we would be able to do that if council voted to do that. So you're not locked into the 5% if the legislature allows us to increase.
Okay, yeah, because I remember that's what you said at the last meeting.
Understand.
I'm speaking of this body that we drew up, we signed under this agreement. There's no way for us to include a clause that states that 20 years from now, if we don't like what if council, I won't be here, if the sitting council does not like what they're seeing with whatever funding is coming in, they can't bring the partners to the table and renegotiate.
If I can back up just for a minute, because I thought Scott did a really good job of summarizing all of the events that have led up to this evening. And that went back to the summertime when the co-op and SENG first started talking about working together to handle differences in the territory boundary line. And this was something that Mr. Clem wanted because we had had an experience within the last couple of years where there was a dispute about who would serve a particular property.
I sat in on those meetings.
And,
Thank you.
and so that was something that the city manager thought was very valuable to the city. And they agreed to do that and added some conditions to have the franchise extended to 30 years and have the franchise agreement approved by December 1st. And so, you know, that was the agreement that City Council approved back when it first came to you, and then we went to the work on the franchise agreement. So here we are tonight with the final version of the franchise agreement.
And let me just say that I know that I raised the topic. It's always had a burning within me about the 30 years, and I felt it worthy to make it on our public record that I am very uneasy with 30 years, and I stand by that, very uneasy.
Understand.
Even though we're talking about a public safety building and roads, it still does not generate enough revenue. We don't know what 30 years is going to bring with a new council city.
The point, though, is that, and I certainly don't want to speak for the utilities or the attorneys that I've met with, but I'm sure that if we went back and said, we want a clause in there that allows us to get out after 20 years, you know what they're going to ask for? They're going to have a clause so they can get out at 20 years. And I don't think that's...
That doesn't frighten me. Look what they've experienced. That doesn't bother me as a council member. It doesn't trouble me.
It might if you have a project that you want to get financed in 5 years and we don't have a funding source.
Well, John, I think we could go to the taxpayers and let them know what we're experiencing. I have faith in our taxpayers here.
And they might say, why did you give away the revenue that we're receiving from the utilities so that you're not now going to raise our taxes?
I rest my case.
Are there any other questions from?
Let me just make one thing real. So we do get the highest rate, because I think you said that at the last meeting. This allows us to go back and...
Correct.
So as long as we can get the highest rate, it really, there's not much to renegotiate.
Well, let me say, I mean, I knew this was 30 years. I'm comfortable with that, and I would hope that we could vote on this. And those who can't support it, I certainly respect that. But, I mean, I think...
Mr. Mayor, as I said, I will support it, but I have a right to express my uneasiness and uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Any other comments from council? All those in favor on second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Sarah, you'll still be here, so 30 years from now, let the folks know.
I was going to let that comment slide because we know you're going to be here in 20 years, Leslie.
No, I will not be here, I promise you.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, after tonight, I'm debating.
I'm writing this date down. I'm writing this date down. So number 5, and the background will be similar to what we just did. But second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to grant a franchise to South Carolina Electric and Gas Company for use of public rights of right-of-way to provide electrical and gas service to the Aiken citizens. By title, an ordinance granting a franchise to the South Carolina Electric and Gas Company for the use of a portion of the public rights of way in the city of Aiken for the purpose of providing electrical and gas utility services to the citizens of the city of Aiken. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Dewar. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a second. Mr. Jericho? Way to go, Ed. Same comments?
Same comments.
Okay, very good. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor on second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to number 6 is an approval of a resolution accepting a deed of dedication of property in Deodore Plantation. By title, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of property located in Deodore Plantation from Crowell and Company, Inc. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mark Gilliam of Crowell and Company is requesting the city to accept a quitclaim deed for a parcel designated as Tract A in the attached plat. The tract contains 3.87 acres and is in the Deodore Plantation. The property is located south of Vidula Court, approaching Amanda Court. The engineering staff has reviewed the deed and plat. They are recommending that the city accept the quitclaim deed for the parcel in this area. There was a question at the November 13th meeting regarding the property being requested to be deeded to the city. Engineering staff states that this is a funnel-shaped property where the stone riprap is to be placed by the city according to the Hopelands Farms agreement. Acceptance of this tract and maintenance of it is part of the settlement of the suit regarding drainage issues in Hopelands Farms. For council consideration is a resolution to accept the quitclaim deed for Tract A in Deodar Plantation Section 4 containing 3.87 acres. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recognize our Public Works staff to answer any questions or maybe to give a brief summary for the newer members of the council on these next two items. So Michelle or John, would you please?
Good evening, Michelle.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to our new council members.
Thank you.
Of course, this first deed of dedication we had discussed this at the last council meeting, and as you all are aware, this quitclaim deed is for what we're terming Tract A. And if you look on the aerial, we actually included an aerial map this second time around that essentially frames or outlines that funnel shape as John referenced of the tract. And essentially, this is going to, as part of the Hopeland Farms settlement for this portion, there is overflow from Woodward Pond, which is just above. It's that parcel number ending in 014 above Tract A. That when it overflows, we're essentially being asked to take over that tract to help slow down and mitigate any damages to the Hopeland Farms area that's downstream of that tract. So that's essentially what's being requested as part of this deed.
Are there any questions for staff while they're here? Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Any comments from the audience? Comments, questions from council? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving down to new business, number 1. This is approval of a resolution accepting deed of dedication for streets, utility easements, and detention pond in Deodar subdivision, section 5-A and 5-B by title of resolution authorizing the acceptance of 2 deeds of dedication from Crowell and Company, Inc. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mark Gilliam is requesting the city to accept a deed of dedication for streets, utilities, easements, and detention pond in sections 5A and 5B of Deodar subdivision. The property is located off of East Pine Log Road, east of Citizens Park. The engineering staff has reviewed the 2 deeds and plats and have determined that the facilities, including the detention ponds, meet city requirements. They are recommending that the city accept the deeds of dedication for the facilities in Section 5A and 5B of Deodar subdivision. For city council consideration is a resolution to accept the deeds of dedication for facilities in Section 5A and 5B in Deodar Plantation subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Clinton. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to number 2 under new business. This is first reading of an ordinance to annex property at 903 Cherokee Avenue Northwest and zone it residential single-family RS-10 by title and ordinance to annex to the corporate limits of the city of Aiken property owned by Mary Mulvihill and located at 903 Cherokee Avenue Northwest and to zone the same residential single-family RS-10. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, pursuant to the city's water and sewer annexation policy, the owner of this property is requesting annexation of property at 903 Cherokee Ave Northwest in zoning as residential single family. The property is located in the Cherry Hills subdivision off of Richland Avenue West. The Planning Commission at their meeting on November 14th considered their request for annexation and recommended that the property be annexed and zoned residential single-family. For City Council consideration is first reading and public hearing of an ordinance to annex property at 903 Cherokee Ave and zoning it residential single-family.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Any comments from the audience? Comments, questions from council? All those in favor on first reading of this annexation? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to number 3 under new business. This is first reading of an ordinance to transfer funds in Capital Project Sales Tax 3 from the water system account to the sewer system account. By title, an ordinance to repurpose the use of funds from the Capital Project Sales Tax. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, at the November 13th council meeting, Councilmember Ebner suggested that staff consider transferring some funds in Capital Project Sales Tax 3 from the water system account to the sewer system account. The engineering staff of the Public Works Department is requesting council to approve the transfer of $1,180,000 of CPSD 3 surplus funds from the water infrastructure account to the sewer account for 1, Woodside and Gem Lakes lift station oxygen injection systems for $910,000, and 2, Sandhurst sewer aerial crossing replacement for $270,000. For City Council consideration is first reading of an ordinance to repurpose the use of the funds in the amount of $1,180,000 in CPSD 3 funds from the water system account to the sewer system account to be used for the project suggested by the engineering staff. And I am aware that at least one council member has some questions, so I would invite Michelle and John up to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, certainly. Thank you, Michelle.
I'd just like an update on the project that we talked about. This is a project that was hopefully put to bed several years ago, and number one, I'd like to know why it's come back, and number two, I'd like to make sure that we've got a permanent solution to it.
Sure. I spoke with the issue in question is the lift station at Gem Lakes, and I received a call last week from a local resident who was very concerned. She was going to be hosting her family at her home, and there was a god-awful smell from the sewer system there. And so at one point in time, several years ago, we had gone in and done a complete overhaul of all the sanitary sewer systems, and this odor had gone away for a period of upwards 5 years. What I was informed of is that it has come back with a vengeance, and we were able to, going into the Thanksgiving holiday, increase our chemical feed into the lift station, which eliminated the odor for that period of time. However, it was a temporary fix. So one of the projects that is going to be done as part of this funds transfer is this oxygen injection system that will be installed at Gem Lakes as well as Woodside lift stations, which will eliminate this odor. It'll enable us to not have to use these chemical additives, and therefore you won't have that odor with the oxygen.
Why did this come back? I'm not an engineer, but I mean, did the lift station break or something?
No, it has everything to do with chemicals. Chemicals are needed, and John can certainly elaborate. Yeah.
We've had Tony Hudson, one of our engineer techs, looking into why the smell keeps coming back, and it's got to do with the fact that we're treating the, you got two different things. You got the actual conveyance of sewage, and then you've got the off-gassing of the sewage. And when the sewage goes into these lift stations, especially when it goes through long force mains, it goes into an anaerobic state, where it's almost like an anaerobic digester at a wastewater treatment plant. So then when it's released back into the gravity sewer again, this H2S gas is released, and it really is a foul smell. It's actually, it can, if you were in the manhole, it can overwhelm you and kill you. So there's actually been documented cases of where this gas has killed municipal workers. So the idea is stop treating it with the chemicals, because the chemical system is something that's kind of a homebrewed system that our guys put together. You know, they've got these storage tanks, they got secondary containment, and these pumps. But it's not a very robust system, and it can break down. And often when you get the smell reports, it's because the system is breaking down that pumps the chemicals in. It's a bioxide, it's a trade name bioxide. We looked at the numbers. If we were to treat it, and this was a study Tony Hudson did for me, if we were to increase the rate of feed to totally eliminate the smell, we would be looking at around $200,000 annually for chemical fees. So I just didn't think that was a sustainable system, especially for something that's so prone to break. And that's when we started looking around at what other available technologies there was to treat the smell, and this Eco2 Speece Cone super oxygenation was what we've kind of settled on. It basically super oxygenizes the waste stream, so it doesn't have the ability to go into a anaerobic state in the force main. Therefore, it won't off gas when it gets to the other end.
Now, how quickly can you get it in?
How quickly can it be installed?
Yes.
Not soon enough. I mean, what we're looking at now is we have a certain amount of chemical that was budgeted for this year. Doing that pilot study to find out how much we needed to totally eliminate the smell has put us into a chemical deficit. So I believe we're going to be running out of chemical, and we'll probably be coming back to you soon to ask for some more money to pay for additional chemical by the end of January or February, depending on how the winter months treat us, because as it's cooler, you don't get as much off-gassing.
Okay, so using chemicals, I'm sorry to take up so much time. Using chemicals, you're going to be able to control it so there won't be the odor?
Well, we're going to use oxygen. Our plan is to use oxygen.
I know, but but you're not going to get there soon. So this week, next month, you're going to use chemicals to control it?
Yes, sir.
And you're going to you have enough money for chemicals until?
Definitely to the end of January. Past that, we're not sure.
And then where would we get the money for more chemicals? Because we have to have it. We can't have the neighborhood.
I'm working on identifying a source now.
For oxygenation begin that project?
We've already had some folks look at it and start the preliminary designs for the system. Is Joy here tonight? No, she's not. I've been working closely with Joy since we were at one time planning to get a RIA grant for this, but that fell through. And so the next logical thing was the CPST money, because it needs to be done, in my opinion, because I'm going to go a little on a tangent. The operating cost for the Eco2 systems for both of them is about $60,000 to $70,000 a year versus the $200,000 a year. So it has a pretty quick rate of return. I think it was calculated like 5.2 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. I would hope if we got approval for this, we could have it in by the end of the fiscal year. It's a very, the lead time is on the manufacturing of the Speece Cone. It's a very large proprietary cone. Everything else goes in pretty quickly.
Well, I applaud you identifying the new system, but Mr. City Manager, my concern is that we need to make sure that this neighborhood is not contaminated, especially as we get through the holidays. So I don't know what to say, but come back to us for money for the chemicals as soon as you can, because we've got to do that. We have no choice.
And this $1 million investment, is it a sure thing, or will you be coming back in 5 years and asking the money to do it all over again?
Ma'am, it's as sure as this world offers. I mean, they've got engineers on their side that have done extensive research into it, and they believe that they can fix our problem with this system.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Michelle. Any comments from the audience? Any other comments or questions from council? Councilman Duarte, thanks for bringing those questions forward.
Yeah, and I hope staff is aggressive in
Absolutely.
maintaining it.
All right, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down to petitions and requests. This is a request for approval to enter into a construction management at risk CMAR professional service contract for the Sand River Basin Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, the City of Aiken applied for and received a state revolving fund low interest loan for $12,500,000 with the funds to be used for the Sand River Basin Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Our engineering staff has reviewed a proposal from Arcadis for a professional services contract for a maximum fee of $11,535,650 for work consisting of 2 phases as part of this project. The scope of work would include grouting and condition assessment of 44 miles of high-risk mainline sewer pipes along with associated manholes and service connections. These pipes are in the oldest portion of our sewer system. About 60% of the pipes are located downtown, 25% located in Hounds Lake North, and 15% located in Calmia Hills community. Phase 1 would include closed-circuit television inspection, root control, and grouting in place. Phase 2 would include structural rehabilitation. For City Council consideration is approval to enter into a professional services contract with Arcadis for a maximum fee of $11,535,650 for work in the Sand River Basin Sewer Rehabilitation Project, which is to be funded through the State Revolving Fund loan. And as you know, our engineering staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any comments from the audience? Comments of council?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, being new to this thing, I had to read this whole thing, so I came up with some questions. If you'll indulge me, I just have a couple quick questions. It said 44 miles of sewer line, and it's somewhere in there, I think I read it was, we have 49 miles of sewer line.
More than that.
Yeah, actually.
300 miles.
We initially, it's about 282 miles
Okay.
of the whole entire system, and we had initially scoped about 50 miles, which
Okay,
is
so
probably
that's
what
the
you were.
49 miles.
Right, but we had to back off of that based on the amount of the loan, the actual funding amount for the project. So that's where we came up with the 44.
Okay, how long is this system good for when you grout it?
It adds about 25 to 35 years.
Does it take special equipment to handle it or to maintain it?
Yes, sir.
Do we
Well,
have that equipment?
Special equipment.
After it's grouted, to maintain it, do we need some special equipment or can regular sewer equipment work on it?
I'm going to defer to our city engineer for that one.
Okay.
Yes, sir, it does take special equipment. I think this year we just got a jet truck and a vac truck, well, specifically the vac truck. And that would be used to kind of pull the lines clean, go in and clean out the manholes, jet the material down, suck it out. Regardless of the project, we'd have to do that type of maintenance.
Right.
This project here is to extend the life of the existing lines that we have in our system. It's not increasing capacity, it's just extenuating its life. So, like Michelle said, it can gain anywhere from 25 to 35 years. 25 is what we're, shooting for. The 35 is.
So we have the equipment to do it?
No, sir. We would not have the equipment to actually do the grouting operation.
To maintain it?
Yes.
We don't have to buy any special equipment, and we have someone who's versed in how to maintain grouted sewer lines?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, the grout actually, what it would do is it would go out of the joints of the pipe and be in the soil matrix around the pipe. So the grout being there doesn't change how you would need to maintain the pipe. It just changes the fact that the pipe's not allowing soil to enter it and shift the pipes over time.
And the way I read this, they identified some areas that couldn't be grouted. How many of those are there, and will we need additional money for that?
Well, we are making, as City Manager John Clem said, that the pipe inspections are included as part of the rehabilitation process. So we're making some broad assumptions on the percentage of pipe that cannot be grouted. So we have some money in there for repairs, and we have some money in there for, I guess, emergency contingency. So if there's something that just really went wrong, we'd have emergency. If we come across something that was so structurally deficient that it couldn't wait till like a new fiscal year to be repaired, there would be some money in there for that as well.
Just out of curiosity, how many companies do we have come in and bid on this?
One.
One. So this is the only company that does this, or
There are others, but they did not submit bids.
why was that?
I have no idea.
So this is kind of take it or leave it on this bid here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The last thing is, it says about 60% of the pipes are located downtown. How do we define downtown? If someone calls me and says, I'm downtown, is my street getting fixed? How do we define what downtown is?
I believe the downtown that they're referring to in that report is in a broader sense. As if you look at the older Aiken maps where you've got the, I guess, what is it, south boundary?
The grid?
East boundary, the grid section,
The
yes.
center of the grid is Union Street. So are we going to start at Union Street and work out, or where?
We could start wherever would be most convenient. It's not something that you have to do in a sequential order. You could do some right out here next to the building, and you can do some right across the street.
Well, I'm just curious, I mean, how we're defining the area that gets done. When you
It's,
say
it's-
60% downtown, how are you defining downtown?
Well, the area that gets done is the Sand River Basin, the sewer basin. And in the Sand River Basin, the oldest and most fragile of the pipes were selected. So we have an inventory of what our assets are. And we know that some of our assets are, very aged, and it's of a material that's likely to shift over time. And we've done some sampling of, camera sampling, and found that the pipe is in need of some sort of grout treatment.
So if I went to your staff and I said, guys, you guys fix this every day, which are the worst pipes? They would tell me these are all the ones that need fixing first?
That's what we did, basically.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
very
so it got from high tech down to where do we need to go here?
It's very much a worse first.
It's a way to fact check.
It's very much a worse first.
If you start looking at, the system as a whole, and you do everything analytically, but you don't go out and verify with the folks in the field, I mean, it's really a waste, because you might have, all the theories on how the stuff is acting, but if you don't field verify it with your staff, it's wasted.
Okay, but I still couldn't tell somebody in my district or anywhere, you're in the downtown area, you're in the Hounds Lake area, it's going to get done, because we don't have a map of where those are.
Yeah, we do have a map.
There's a map.
There is a map.
Okay.
Could we send that out to?
Because some of this, I mean, this was riveting reading, and
I've got an actual whole map book of this project that I could send to you, Mr. Waltz, if that's.
okay, all right, thank you.
We should probably give the new council members a copy of that Innovize report.
Yes, sir.
Now, my question is that when I, at one point, saw how much needed to be done in Hounds Lake, no, not Hounds Lake North, the figure was 9 million. And I've said this before, this is not fixing all of the problem. We are trying to do our best to prioritize and say, okay, we're going to do downtown and Hounds Lake and Calmia. But we're only doing 15% of Calmia. No, we're not. I'm sorry. But we're not doing it all. We have hundreds of miles of stormwater, and we're running the risk of if other pipes fail, then we're going to have to do them as required. So,
That is the risk with all.
do you have any contingency money to do that?
As everyone looks to our finance director.
I see a head going, nope.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. I think we all
Right.
need to recognize that we've got more pipes that need to be replaced, and I think when the new members of council get to look at that Innovi's report, they'll see the issue, and if you'll put that page in that you gave me on what streets and you're going to be doing this work on, we just need to recognize that, I mean, it's a start. It's a step in the right direction. You know, we're moving to doing something that hasn't been done before, so.
Oh, I agree. I just get scared when only one person bid. I'd like
Yes,
to know
yeah.
why the others didn't want to.
Yeah.
I'd really like to know why they didn't. Do they think we're doing something wrong here?
Well, I'd be interested if you could talk to your counterparts in other municipalities to see that we're
This
getting a
same,
good price.
this same approach was used in Sullivan's Island with great success.
Yeah, I read that, but I just wonder why, if it's such a great deal, why people aren't bidding on it. That's how they make their living.
It's, the requirements to be able to do this work is very strenuous. You have to be a professional engineer and a general contractor. So there's not many of those out to start with. So if they, you know, it's really, I guess, a supply and demand problem.
How many RFPs did you put out? I mean,
We put out the one RFP for this.
okay, but okay, let me rephrase. How many people did you ask to bid on it?
How many did we specifically ask? I talked to Arcadis, I talked to JLA to see if there was a way that they could look into it. And I believe that was, and AECom was the third.
Okay.
So only Arcadis responded. And Arcadis has, to a large point, pioneered this technology. So it's, if you go.
And it also comes highly recommended by DHEC for what
Correct.
that's worth.
Good caveat.
Yeah.
So we're going to have this work completed by the spring of 2019?
Yes, sir. And well, the work should be done. I believe there's going to be some follow-up warranty inspections that are needed beyond that, but the bulk of the work will be completed.
Okay, and we're going to be able to repay this state revolving fund loan prior to completion or shortly after completion? How long is that loan going to?
The loan was good for, I want to say it was,
Thought it was a lot longer than this.
no, at one time, I think we were.
Got finance director, I think.
At one time, it was, I think, going to be a 30-year loan.
That's what I thought. It was a long, long time.
Due to the technology.
20 year.
20 years.
Due to the technology only having a ceiling of, you know, a guaranteed ceiling of 25 years, they didn't want to have a loan that extended beyond the
30 years.
But we're going to have a loan for 25 years for work that's going to be done within 3.
But they only guarantee it for 2, if I read that right.
Well, I mean, it's a major issue.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
Quite honestly.
They only guarantee their work for 2
Kim,
years.
is that correct? We're getting a 25-year loan for work that's going to be done in 3 years, and then we're going to have just as much that needs to be done after that?
Yes, but let me kind of equate it to this.
Yes.
You might build your house in 9 months, but you're going to pay for it over 30 years.
Yes.
This is a significant project. In order to be able to afford to pay it, we have to have time. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
I understand that, and my concern is that this is only, what percentage of our pipes is this project doing?
It's 44 miles out of, what did we say, 289?
280, 290.
282.
44 miles out of 280, so, I mean,
That 18%.
yeah, and we've still got the rest to do after that, then what are your plans for financing the rest of it?
The request will be CPST4, and staff recommendation that I gave you 2 years ago is that as much as possible of that be used for strictly for infrastructure.
But we're doing 11 million for 18%.
Yep.
At best, we only got about 36 to 38 million out of CPST 3.
Yeah.
So we're still going to be short.
That's right.
Quite a bit.
Let me just add that reality is we can't fix our problem the way we're trying to fix it now, CPST monies or with our budget monies. That's reality. And there has to be another source of funding. And I think we all know what it is, or we hate the word. But we have to resort to that.
Understand.
The public needs to be educated in terms of what's
Just want
going
to
on.
put things in context for the new members of council. Thank you.
We hate the word tax.
Can I just ask one more question, Tom? Because I know I'm sorry to do this. The numbers on this were not in what we had. We had all the verbiage, but we didn't have the numbers of the contract. Why did we not have numbers in it? How come I get a thing that has all the verbiage, but it has the numbers in it?
Good question.
Michelle?
Councilman, you can blame me for that. I was trying to sacrifice as few trees as possible. It was about a 200-page
I have a
proposal.
sapling. It doesn't take long.
Right, right. But, so it was included, but it wasn't part of the agenda package.
Right.
And we can certainly provide that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to vote on something when I don't know what the numbers are.
But again, you do have the total. That 11.535,650 is the number.
Right. I
It's not
understand.
itemized.
But you're wanting
I
a
just don't know where it's
breakdown.
going.
Right.
Yeah, and that was addressed this evening, you know, the percentage of pipe that was going to be fixed with that number, but I'm a numbers girl, so I want numbers as well.
Right.
Just moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question for John. John, here again, you're using chemicals to help with our problem, right?
Yeah, it is a chemical grout.
Right. And stabilizing that soil, how do we do that? Are we using chemicals to stabilize the soil around the?
It is a chemical grouting process. From the best that I understand, it does turn to inertness. You know, it's an inert chemical once it dries out. It's not something that's a pollutant or hazardous material. So, and I believe each component by itself is also not hazardous to the environment. And the other great thing is we are operating within the sanitary sewer system and not the stormwater sewer system. So this would go to the Horse Creek PSA, not to somebody's backyard detention pond if there was a spill. So I think it's a very safe procedure to use for this.
Okay. Pipes, and technically I'm not literate enough I'm not quite sure if I'm describing it. Is there an injection that repairs the pipe inside?
You know, I was thinking about getting the animation for this. There's a lot of them out there. Basically what it does is there's basically a little rig that you insert into the pipe, and it's a tracked camera.
Right.
And it pulls this rig along, and when it gets to a joint, it inflates basically what amounts to 2 large balloons on each side of the joint. Once those get inflated, that creates a seal around the joint, and then the machine is capable of injecting the epoxy or chemical grout in. Comes in as 2 parts, just like the epoxy you would buy at a store. So it doesn't really become the actual grout until those 2 things are mixed. And then that goes out and pressurizes the area between the balloons and then goes out into the soil matrix around the joint. And they continue to run that until 1 or 2 things happen. They get a sufficient back pressure, meaning that they've sealed the joint, or they pump a certain volume. Once that certain volume's pumped, they let it sit idle for a little while to give some time for the grout to gel, and then they do it again until they get that back pressure. And I think after 3 tries, if they don't get the back pressure that they're looking for, they'll move on and mark that grout as basically a failure to grout. So we'll know about that location in the future if we need to do any type of rehabilitation in that area, like a point repair.
Okay.
All right, very good. Thank you. And I apologize, I can't remember if we've opened it up for comment from the
You did.
audience. Yeah, okay, that was comments from council. All those in favor for this request for approval for the construction management professional services contract to the Sand River Basin Sewer Rehabilitation Project, please raise your hand.
It's a tough one to vote against, but
Okay.
Don't feel comfortable about it. I don't know what I'm voting on.
It's unanimous, but I think all of council would like to see updates on this project as it matures, if we could. Just keep us informed on this one. And if you could send that breakdown in numbers also, Michelle, we'd appreciate it. Thank you for that.
And a map.
And a map, yeah.
We can see where these things
Yeah.
are.
The GIS imaging that they did on this process is really, I mean, it was fascinating
It's
to watch.
impressive.
Yeah,
Yes.
it really was. All right, moving down to information, issues, and updates. I'm going to ask our Parks and Recreation Director, Jessica Campbell, if she would come up. We have several events in our city through the holidays, and we'd love an opportunity for her to share those with us. Jessica, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. As early as this Friday, we have Christmas craft show at Week Center, Friday and Saturday. We have downtown tree lighting as well Friday evening, right here on Newberry Street. And then, of course, our famous Christmas in Hopelands. We have 13 magical nights of lights starting December 9th and 10th, then the 14th to the 23rd and the 26th. So a wonderful time of year, and we can find all that information on AikenIsMagical.com.
AikenIsMagical.com.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Will the stables have been redone? Would the horses be on? I
It
guess
will be
part of
on
the-
display. They're currently open. The Friends of Hopelands and Rye Patch committees work to put the horse on display in the stables, and those will be lit up during Christmas in Hopelands as part of the pathway for guests and visitors to see.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
it'd be a good idea, and I learned this from the School of Hard Knocks, because I didn't realize I was even invited. But all council members are invited to the Employee Awards Luncheon at Odell Weeks on Friday, December 8th at 12:30 p.m.
Very good.
Oh, that I am.
Very good. All right.
I missed my first one.
Anything else for
Nobody
the
told
good of,
I have two comments to add, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. These are positive comments with our staff, Tim Coakley and Tim O'Brien. A lot of kudos go to the two of you from the calls that I've received and comments regarding our parkways, especially Richland Avenue. Tim went out there personally and planted the flowers you see out there. I'm just kidding about that.
already had a machete.
But nevertheless, a lot of positive feedback regarding that corridor and the improvements there. Secondly, Michelle, there was a phone call that was received on the Wednesday regarding an out-of-town executive that was in town visiting his daughter. Lots of water with a leak that was going on. They weren't quite sure what to do. Michelle was telephoned, and her staff was out there, and 45 minutes the repair was done. So they managed to have a great Thanksgiving because of that repair so quickly. So kudos to our staff for the job that they're doing.
All right. I would just like to say to Councilman Waltz, Councilwoman Gregory, and Councilman Giardo, thank you, for lending to the service. I know you're doing this because you love the city. And we look forward to many good years moving forward with your leadership. So congratulations. And Ed, I know your family has already left, but Ed, is there anybody in the audience you might want to introduce to us tonight?
It's my wife, Holly. Stand up, say hi. There she is.
Holly, welcome. Andrea, I see a bunch of smiling faces out there.
We travel in packs. My husband, James Gregory, my mother-in-law, Beverly Giles, my beautiful daughter, Abby Gregory, my father, Luis Nira, and my mother, Connie Nira.
Very good. Welcome. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
What about Ed? Did you know that?
It was past my dad's bedtime. He had to go home, and my wife had to go back to work.
And Leslie, I know William and Dexter and Kevin.
I do have some family out in the audience that I learned.
Wait a minute now. She's stealing my voters. She's already doing it.
I was introduced to the Prices, who supports Ed.
Very good.
And they're new here from California. Moved here from
Glad you're
California.
here.
So
Welcome.
welcome from California.
Thank you.
With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Second.
Oh, the mayor pro tem should make that motion. The mayor
All
pro
those
tem
in
should-
favor, please stand up. We're adjourned.